present in room 2200 so we can establish our quorum and begin our hearing. First, one housekeeping item is item number 11, SB-515 has been pulled. We will hear that bill on our April 23rd hearing. We have today's agenda. We have 16 bills, 6 of which are on consent, and let me name them. Item number 1, SB-485. Item number 6, SB-627. Item number 7, SB-740. Items 14, 15, and 16, SB-735, SB-736, and SB-737 by the Committee on Local Government. We don't have, oh, we do, okay. So before we hear the presentation on the bills, we establish a quorum. Assistant, please call the roll.
Senators Durazo,
Here.
Durazo here. Senators Choi, Adigin,
Present.
Adigin here. Cabalden, Laird,
Here.
Laird here. Sayarto,
Here.
Sayarto here. Wiener, you have a quorum.
Okay, as the assistant notes, a quorum has been established.
Madam Chair, I would just move all 6 consent items.
That's very gentlemanly of you.
Yes. Well, nobody has voted for them yet, but I thought I'd move them.
I'm not point of order, but do we have 7 or 6? Because mine's showing 7. One get pulled off consent.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Which one?
6 11.
Yes.
Okay. Then
Thank you. Thank you for the noticing that, for clarification. We have a motion to adopt the consent calendar. Please call the roll.
Senators Durazo,
Here. Aye. Sorry.
Durazo, aye. Choi, Adigin,
Aye.
Adigin, aye. Cabalden, Laird,
Aye.
Laird, aye. Sayarto, Sayarto, aye. Wiener,
Okay, we're going to put the consent calendar on call, right? All right, we start with, all right, we have Senator Richardson here. Please welcome, Senator. And you may present SB-515. Good morning.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. Well, I'm looking forward to the gentleman-like ideas that Mr. Laird would have, and hopefully we do a quick pass on 2, 3, 4, and 5 today. So I'll be pulling for you, Mr. Laird. Good morning, Madam Chair and members. First, I would like to start by thanking the chair, committee staff, and the sponsor of this bill, who is California for a Just and Equitable California, CJAC, for working with my office to make the necessary changes to ensure the bill remains narrow in scope. And of course, I will be accepting the committee amendments today.
Thank you.
SB-515 addresses a critical gap by improving how local government in California collects and reports demographic data. This bill recognizes that without accurate, consistent, and complete information, the unique needs of historically and marginalized communities, especially the descendants of enslaved persons, remains invisible in our decision-making processes. As we continue working towards equity in public policy, it's essential that our data reflects the full diversity of our communities. With that, I'd like to highlight a few key points about this bill. Number 1, SB 515 aims to enhance the accuracy, consistency, and completeness of demographic data collected by local governments in California. Number 2, by allowing SB 515 to analyze this refined data, government agencies can develop targeted hiring initiatives and allocate resources more effectively, and ensuring that the services address the unique challenges faced by many different populations in our great state. Number 3, without specific data, the challenges and contributions of our community remains to be overlooked. SB 515 ensures that all experiences are recognized and considered in policy discussions. Current data collection practices lump all African Americans or Blacks individuals into a single category, masking important distinctions between these different groups. Similarly, the State Controller's Office and the Department of Human Resources provides more accurate data of other ethnic groups, such as Asian, Pacific Islander, and Hispanics, which is why this bill was originated. By requiring all California cities and counties to collect this data, it ensures uniformity, preventing gaps in information that could also hinder policy effectiveness and delivery of services. SB-515 maintains that all data collections reflect state laws, privacy protections, and data security standards. Here with me today to speak in support of SB-515 is Chris Lodson, a representative of California for a Just and Equitable California, CJAC. Did you want him to use that microphone outside the rail? Since this is your film. Okay.
Good morning. We'll be giving you 2 minutes, please.
Good morning, Senators. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of SB 515 today, a crucial piece of legislation that will require cities and counties across California to establish a category of data collection specifically for residents who are descendants of persons enslaved in the United States, starting with city and county employees. In 2022, through the enactment of Section 14 of SB 189, California became the first state to require state agencies to create a category of data collection for descendants of persons enslaved in the United States. That law, which took effect on January 1st of 2024, updated state hiring forms to allow individuals who apply for and are hired to state jobs and who self-identify as Black or African American to also indicate whether or not they self-identify as a descendant of a person enslaved in the United States. The creation of a dedicated category of data collection for these residents is not a symbolic gesture. It is a substantive step toward closing what I call the lineage data gap, which refers to the near complete absence of any state and public data whatsoever on which California residents who, like myself, are descendants of those brave and heroic Americans who were subjected to and then later emancipated from the institution of chattel slavery. The good news is, as the senator mentioned, you've done something like this before. Over the past decade, the California legislature has recognized the unique and distinct ethnic backgrounds of various AAPI populations and requires state agencies to disaggregate the AAPI data category as well. That important work has led to increased attention and targeted support for specific AAPI subgroups. We, residents whose ancestors were enslaved and emancipated in this country, need and deserve the same targeted attention and support. But to do that, you have to see our communities first. Members, it is for these reasons and more that I respectfully ask for your aye vote on SB 515. And I'll just note here quickly, this bill is supported by ourselves, the Coalition for a Just and Equitable California, as proud co-sponsors, as well as the American Redress Coalition of California, Sacramento, the American Redress Coalition of California, Bay Area, the Lineage Equity and Advancement Project, and the California Black Lineage Society. Thank you, Senators.
Thank you, sir. Any other lead witnesses?
No.
No. Okay. So do we have any opposition lead witnesses? No. Okay. And if anybody would like to step up to give your comments with your name and position on the measure, whether you're supporting or in opposition, you can step up to the mic. Just name and organization.
Just
Okay.
keeping it, making sure I got the right bill.
I thought you were pulling out your speech.
You know, I do teach that, but my name is Alexandra Boyd, and I'm here to support SB 515. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no one else, we'll go back to the members. Any comments or questions? Our members?
I would move the bill.
Thank you, Senator Laird. All right. With that, we'd like to close.
I respectfully request an aye vote on SB 515 from this local government committee. SB 515 will assist in the identification and address the specific needs of California by allowing for a more targeted, equitable, and effective allocation of resources in education, healthcare, economic opportunity, and social services. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Senator Laird. Uh, uh, oh, here we go. Here we go. Do pass as amended to appropriations. Call the roll.
Senators Durazo,
Aye.
Durazo, I. Choi, Adeline, Adeline, I. Cabalden, Laird,
Aye.
Laird, I. Sayarto, Sayarto, no. Weiner,
Aye.
Weiner, I.
What is it? Okay, we're gonna leave it on call. The vote was 4-1. Thank you. And we'll move on to the next, is that SB-57?
Yes.
Okay. Senator Richardson, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and again, members of this committee. I would first like to start by thanking the committee staff for working with my office and the sponsors of SB 611, and I will be accepting the committee's amendments that have been presented today. As you are all too aware, California's housing crisis has reached a critical point, profoundly affecting the state's economic stability and well-being of its residents. SB 611 is crucial to ensuring that the legally approved development projects can move forward as long as the community housing plans were in effect at the time of permitting. SB 611 removes the risk of unnecessary delays to much needed housing and community development projects. For example, in the largest county in the state of California alone, delays to community plans can prevent tens of thousands of housing units from being built. In 2012, the Hollywood Community Plan was adopted, but litigation stalled critical projects and setting these projects back several years. In response, the legislature passed AB 1515 in 2019 with a unanimous bipartisan support, which provided certainty by ensuring projects permitted under an adopted community plan would proceed despite pending litigation. Unfortunately, those protections expired on January 1st, 2025, which means we are once again facing uncertainty for vital development projects. So to be clear, SB 611 is in essence to extend that timeline. SB 611 restores these provisions, ensuring that projects remain legally vested at the time of permitting, reducing unnecessary delays. Here with me today to testify in support of this bill is the sponsor of SB 611, Freddie Quintana, on behalf of the City of Los Angeles, Mayor Karen Bass, the Council, and the City Planning Department.
Good morning, Mr. Quintana. Do you have any other lead witnesses that are going to be speaking, or is he your own?
He's the only one for this item.
Okay, great. You have 2 minutes, Mr. Quintana.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. My name is Freddie Quintana, and I serve as the Senior Director of State Affairs to Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass. I'm here because Mayor Bass is deeply committed to protecting housing projects that will address the housing and homelessness crisis in Los Angeles and throughout California. As the Senator just mentioned, the Hollywood Community Plan in 2012 was challenged and as a result of that challenge was halted plan-related permits and created developer uncertainty and created a lot of housing construction delays. Ironically enough, earlier this year, after AB 1515 had sunset, we had adopted the Hollywood Community Plan again after a 10-year update, which included a proposal of 30,000 new additional housing units. The plan has again been challenged, and we are trying to create certainty to protect those permits that we're currently issuing in Los Angeles. SB 611 aims to restore the protections of AB 1515, and that passed in 2019 with bipartisan support. We do not seek to stop environmental review of an individual housing project or development. Rather, we just want to prevent the CEQA litigation process from stalling or stopping all projects tied to a community plan. In addition to the Hollywood Community Plan, we are currently in the process of updating 14 of our other community plans, including the Harbor Wilmington plans, as well as Boyle Heights. This is why we need to pass SB 611 now, and this bill will provide much needed clarity to local governments, residents, and developers so that the critical housing development projects may proceed without unnecessary delays. With that, we respectfully ask the committee for their aye vote.
Do we have any opposition lead witnesses? No, seeing none. Okay, and if there are any anybody in the public that wants to speak up in support or in opposition, please come to the mic, give your name and organization and position.
Madam Chair and members, Kareem Dreesi on behalf of the California Building Industry Association in strong support. Grateful for the author's leadership on this issue, and we respectfully request an aye vote. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Will Abrams, representing a coalition of wildfire survivors in strong support. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing no one else, we'll come to our members. Any questions or comments, members? Motion has been made by Senator Weiner. Seeing none, go back to Senator Richardson if you would like to close.
Yes, ma'am. By restoring legal protections approved in AB 1515, originally authored by Mr. Friedman for community plans, this bill ensures that critical housing projects are not delayed. SB 611 removes uncertainty, for developers, accelerates construction, and aligns with the state's broader housing and environmental goals. SB 611 is a common sense balanced approach, prioritizing the urgent need for housing. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Okay, if we could do the roll call. Oh,
The motion.
you can do.
The motion is due pass as amended to the Committee on Judiciary. Senators Durazo,
Aye.
Durazo, aye. Senators Choi, Choi, aye. Adeguin, Adeguin, aye. Cabaldon, Cabaldon, aye. Laird, Laird, aye. Sayarto, Sayarto, aye. Weiner, Weiner, aye.
Okay. The bill is out. We'll close the roll. Oh, 7-0. Okay. Senator Richardson, you have another one?
I do, and I have another one after that.
Oh my goodness.
I'm your frequent flyer today.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam
Miss-
Chair.
Miss Seatmate.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of this very important committee. I'd like to start by, again, thanking the committee staff for working with my office to make technical changes to the language, which I will be accepting the committee's amendments today. Let me start by painting a picture. And I'd like to request permission to share with you some photos that I think paint that picture very well for all of us. In the third quarter of 2024, one of the largest cities in the state of California reported 32,145 dumpings. That's not items, that's reporting locations that needed dumped items to be picked up. This is the highest quarterly count in the last 3 years and represents a 22% increase from the one prior to this one. More specifically, by district, the dumping reports led to a more intense cleanup program that resulted in over 26,103 tons of trash. Again, 26,103 tons of trash, or 52.2 million pounds of trash, debris, and overgrown vegetation to be picked up as of May 29 of 2024. SB 757 would authorize the legislative body of a city or county to establish a procedure to use a nuisance abatement lien or a special assessment to collect abatement costs related to the administrative costs that the city or county incurs until January 1st, 2035. Local governments use various enforcement strategies to make neighborhoods, streets, parks, and buildings safer. One important strategy is to fine owners for allowing excessive trash and biological hazards on their properties over an extended period of time. Despite municipal rules and notices, some property owners maintain nuisances on their properties while ignoring the administrative fines and citations imposed by local governments, thereby putting financial burden on local agencies to enforce these fines and collections through the courts after incurring significant costs. Allowing local officials to collect unpaid administrative fines with special assessments and abatement liens puts the responsibility on the property owner to dispute the assessment, instead of requiring a local government to bear further costs by going to court when a property owner does not keep their property free from debris nor from the cost to clean the area itself. This change allows the nuisance abatement cost to be collected, which cleans up our streets and vacant lots from unnecessary debris and clutter, and reimburses cities and counties from burdensome unbudgeted cost. SB 757 is a strategy and a toolbox that prioritizes health, cleanliness, and safety for residents across California. Here today to speak in support of this bill is Nicola DeLuca on behalf of contract cities, which includes Oakland and Compton. And this is my only witness on this item.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Honorable Chair Durazo, Vice Chair Sayerto, and committee members, my name is Nicolo DeLuca. As the senator said, and very grateful for her leadership on this here on behalf of the cities of Oakland and Compton. Cities like Oakland and Compton, we have some historically underserved neighborhoods. That's no secret. And they're low-income neighborhoods, and chronic nuisance properties pose a particular threat. These neglected properties and neighborhoods are not simply eyesores. They're active public health hazards that endanger residents, destabilize neighborhoods, and often reinforce cycles of disinvestment and decline. Yet, because many of these properties are held by absentee landlords or speculators, the civil penalties alone are not enough to bring these bad actors into compliance. They weigh the cost of fines against the revenue generated from neglected renting or illegal uses, and in many cases simply absorb it as an administrative hit. SB 757 offers a measured, time-limited, and equity-informed solution by allowing cities to recover unpaid administrative fines through nuisance abatement liens or special assessments, but only for violations that present an immediate threat to public health or safety. We feel this bill balances enforcement power with meaningful protections. It requires notice and reasonable opportunity to cure, mandates a hardship waiver process for those who are trying in good faith to comply, and ensures that any recovered funds are reinvested directly into housing code enforcement and support programs, including revolving loan funds for rehabbing substandard housing. That last point is very important, especially in cities like Oakland and Compton, where many families live in older aging housing stock and may lack the means to make necessary repairs without assistance. SB 757 creates a pathway not just for accountability, but for local governments to support remediation and preserve safe, affordable housing over the long term. Back when I worked for the city of Oakland, I oversaw our illegal dumping and nuisance abatement, and it is so disheartening for neighborhoods when you try to address a property and they get stalled in the courts, and then you really have cities start losing faith in our actions. So respectfully ask for your aye vote, and very grateful and happy to answer any questions, and very grateful for the senator and her leadership on this important policy topic.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any lead opposition? Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
You have 2 minutes. You could say.
My name is Detlef Ehrenfeld, and I'm here to tell you today about my experiences with code enforcement and why you should not allow local government to place liens on properties without court-ordered judgment. I'm 75 years old. Around 40 years ago, I bought a property in rural Sonoma County. My wife and I raised my kids here. We kept animals, enjoyed the beauty of Sonoma County, and lived a rural life. In the early 90s, the county informed me that I had allegedly some inoperable cars on my property. They never visit the property, and violated the code. I then stopped hearing from them uh, about the situation and assumed that the issue had been resolved. I had a train wreck in the meantime. I was in the hospital. Then in November 2023, over 25 years later, the county enforcement flew over my property and wrote me a new citation for allegedly having inoperable cars on the property. I haven't heard from them since the 90s. Now they claim I owe them $50,000 in fines for the cars because the penalty was like $5 a day for each of what, and it came to over $50,000. Last year, the county sued me, seeking a judgment and a lien on my property. Luckily, because the county had to go to court to file the lien, I found help through a legal aid organization who are helping me to get time to get these alleged vehicles off the property, uh, which I need because I have disability, the heart condition and knee operation. With their help, I'm getting enough time to resolve the concerns and also to keep my property. If the county had been allowed to place a lien on my property without going to court, they could have taken my property away by now, for which I work very hard. Code enforcement should be about cleaning up property, helping people, and not collecting money, not levying hundreds and thousands of dollars on the property and just take it.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Without due process.
Mr. I'm
Please do
sorry.
not pass this
You
bill.
could, if you could wrap it up, please. Time is up. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. My name is Micah Doctoroff, and I'm a senior staff attorney at the ACLU of Northern California. I'm here today on behalf of ACLU California Action in regretful opposition to SB 757. Our primary concern with this bill is that it will remove a key due process protection for property owners, namely the protection of judicial review before the placement of liens for code enforcement fines. While we understand that it is far easier to place a lien on real property without the added step of civil litigation, this step has been embedded and enshrined in our legal system for a reason, and we would respectfully urge the committee to preserve it here. Property owners in code enforcement proceedings already have very few due process protections, and these impacts will be heightened under the administrative process proposed here. With no right to court-appointed attorneys, many property owners will be unrepresented in these administrative proceedings and forced to navigate a complicated process on their own. Code enforcement actions often target low-income property owners and racial minorities, so we are particularly concerned about the disproportionate impact SB 757 will have on these communities. By way of example, in rural Siskiyou County, where the Board of Supervisors passed a separate local ordinance allowing administrative liens for cannabis code violations, over 80% of administrative liens were placed on properties owned by Asian Americans, despite the fact that Asian Americans made up less than 4% of the county's adult population. Further compounding these issues, we fear SB 757 will also incentivize local code enforcement officers to bring more code violation cases and move more quickly because the fines and penalties recovered from these actions will be directed to supporting the work of local code enforcement officers. Similar bills have been vetoed in the past by both Democratic and Republican governors because of due process concerns, and for these reasons, we would ask you to reject this bill today. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's anyone in the public that wants to speak in support or opposed, would like to come up and give your name and organization and position? Nobody? Okay, seeing none, come back here to our members. Questions or comments? Senator Vice Chair.
Yes, I have a question on this issue. My understanding is that the landowner typically there's a vacant land, a lot in the city, and that becomes a dumping site. Is that correct?
That's the focus of this bill, is regarding primarily vacant lots.
Yeah.
And we could specify that more clearly if the committee required.
So unfortunately, the landowner, the lot owner, may be absent, like this gentleman's case, and sometimes they may not realize what's going on, not living in the city. Even if the person is living in the city, um, unfortunately, some people, I don't know why people dump in the vacant lots. I guess many cases I've seen like large items, not household items that may fit in the trash cans, like a recycled food, whatever landfill. Three trash cans typically residential um, homeowners do have, but like a couch or whatever large items which will cost for them to get rid of. I think they are typically, trying to violate without hiring or paying for legal removal or dumping those items. They just bring them over and dump it at night. And the landowner is the victim as well. So I wonder whether this is uh, government's responsibility to monitor and prohibit that kind of activities rather than the landowner.
Permission to respond? Okay. Senator Choi, you brought up very important questions. And actually, I want to thank the witness and the representative here today, because this is a very important issue. First of all, cities have laws that require that if you own a piece of property, you're supposed to keep your property free and clear of trash and debris. That's whether a person has a residential home, whether they have a vacant lot. We have rules that if you own property, your property is supposed to be free and clear. So this is not a surprise. This isn't something, they weren't aware of. Second of all, code enforcement does not issue liens for a person who simply had a couch delivered on their vacant property once. And that's why we provided the pictures for you. Code enforcement comes out when there's an excessive amount of trash and debris that is accumulated. Notices have been provided. It's not that code enforcement just suddenly says, oh, we're going to attach a lien and charge you $20,000. You actually receive notices of and given time to remove that trash and debris. Then to the third point, are the property owners aware? Property owners are required when they pay taxes to actually have a proper address, location for the property owner. And that's where the information is shared. And then finally, to the witness's point, if you heard in his testimony, he said that he was given notice, I think more than 10, 20 years prior, and then subsequently did remove those inoperable vehicles. So the issue wasn't that inoperable vehicles existed. Um, Finally, to summarize, this bill does not remove due process. It simply puts the due process on the owner, on the property owner, because right now, as all of us know, the tremendous amount of costs that cities, counties, and courts are incurring in order to receive to get in line to process the lien and go through that whole process. It does not prohibit the actual owner from going to court and to say, well, no, this lien is not appropriate. So just because the lien is assessed does not mean that the lien is in fact charged to that particular owner. Thank you very much for your question, sir.
Can I have a follow-up question?
Go ahead.
Let me get down to a little bit more detail, little gritty. Um, now, like I said, that's against the land owner's desire to have their lot that become dumping site, and against their will when nobody knows. People bring the trash debris to their site, and let's suppose that was me, and then I clean up with my own expenses, and next day that happens again, and the city has no responsibility for mm, blocking that kind of a continuous illegal dumping activities by untrustworthy, citizens or people keep on doing, and the responsibility is laid upon the landowner continuously rather than city shares the responsibility?
Thank you, Mr. Choi, again for that question. The owner would have several options available to him or her. One would be to actually enclose the property with a fence, which is what most property owners do, particularly if they have vacant lots. They secure that vacant lot so people can't dump. The other option that a property owner has is to post that no illegal dumping is allowed. If in fact, then the property owner posts that no illegal dumping is allowed and they have a camera and they view a vehicle that is dumping the couch, then they can seek legal redress for that. Thank you, Mr. Choi.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We recently had a related dispute in my district over a water district that was choosing to do bills through property tax, and the issue of liens was at the center of that debate, and it was rejected because the belief that even though there was a payment plan over months and a different way of doing it, that lower income people were disadvantaged by that and more likely to have problems when liens were assessed. That seemed to be part of the concern of the ACLU. I wondered if you'd speak to that and why that, in your view, is or isn't an issue here.
Because permission to respond.
Go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that question, Senator Lair, and your long history and knowledge. I feel it's kind of an honor for you to ask me a question and me to answer one. Given
I'm fairly certain you're going to get over that.
Give me a little time. Give me a little time. Sir, the answer to that question is, again, as a property owner is required to, in the city, municipality, and county, if they choose to be a property owner, regardless of their economic status, the law says that they have to keep their property free and clear of debris. So to say that someone, well, they may not have the funds to pay the lien, well, then the other option is to clean the property themselves, put a fence around the property, report people who are doing illegal dumping, and to, in most cases, at least the cities that were referenced here by my witness, most cities do have a nuisance abatement program that if you call them, actually property owners, you're included several free dumpings. So you're allowed 2 dumpings or 3 dumpings that are allowed to pick up miscellaneous one-time experiences. This bill is not related to, again, the person who had the one-time couch that was dumped or tires that were dumped. Cities have a process to realize that a property owner doesn't control if someone walks up and dumps 3 tires. And that's why cities have programs to pick up illegal items. This is for habitual failure to take responsibility of a person's property. And in that sense, the question is, the owner is responsible for that property, not the city, not the county. And so they're responsible to keep it clean, and to expect a city or a county to continue to pay beyond nominal pickups is beyond what our cities are able to bear.
And just to comment, I agree in the sense of the responsibility. In my ancient city service, we had large lots inside the city where people were required to clear all the excess brush after every rainy season. If they didn't, the city forced it and they had to pay, but they had the first option of doing that. So I agree that on principle, this is something that should work. I'm going to support the bill. I just hope over time you're sensitive to that if there's actual evidence that comes up that that it is going to be a problem with people that can't pay, even though they have the responsibility.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Senator again.
Well, thank you very much for bringing this forward. I know the City of Oakland is a sponsor, which I represent. Um, I had to step out when you began your bill presentation, so I just want to get clarification. Are you accepting the committee amendments?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And then I have dealt with these issues as a mayor in my city, and there was a very um, difficult and well publicized case where an elderly African American homeowner in South Berkeley um, got caught up in a very protracted nuisance abatement process, and a court receiver was appointed to actually carry out the correction of the code violations at the property. The costs of the work that the receiver engaged in were so significant, and the penalties that the court was at the point where they were ready to sell the property in order to recover those costs. And we had to work with that property owner, the city of Berkeley, to proactively and the court to find a way to provide assistance so that we can ensure that that individual is able to retain ownership of the property as well as mitigate the nuisance. So for low-income elderly property owners, it's challenging, but people do have a responsibility to make sure that the properties are up to code compliance. So I'll just note that this does specifically apply to cases where electrical, plumbing, or zoning or structural issues create an imminent danger to health and safety. But I do wonder what, and you can help address this, or your witness, who I know very well, what the due process is for cities imposing these fines. Because right now, they could appeal, then it could go to a court. Could you maybe elaborate on what the due process would be under this bill? Because I do think it's important that there be some due process, because sometimes these things are in dispute.
Right.
And more often than not, the city is right, but sometimes they may be imposing requirements that may be unreasonable. It's subjective. Is that the determination of that individual code enforcement officer or fire marshal? Sometimes these things are in dispute. So I'm curious if you can elaborate on what the due process would be.
Yes. Permission to respond, Madam Chair? Thank you. I am not aware of, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, not knowing the amount of time that I'm allotted to do this, what I'd like to suggest, if the members are in support of voting aye on the bill, what I would like to do, if you would like, is I'm more than welcome to work with committee staff to address 2 points that I've heard today. One point is the latter of what you just mentioned, that in the bill, maybe we should spell out what is the due process that would be required for a city and county to meet in order to apply a lien. And I'd be more than happy to work with the committee staff to put that in the bill if it would be the will of the members. The second item that I heard that was mentioned here today by both Mr. Laird and Aragon, and that is, what do we do? And actually, frankly, with the witness and the opposing representative here, what do we do in the case of a person who, for whatever reason cannot afford? We can most certainly put a process, something into the bill that says, if in the event the individual who has a lien assessed is deemed to be, of low income, age, etc., the following process would need to be applied. It seems like those are the two overarching items that were mentioned. And if the committee would afford me the ability to work with the committee staff, I would be willing to accept those amendments.
Okay.
Unless you want me to further answer the question, which I'm happy to do, but I'm also a believer in the reason why we're here is not just to pass legislation, but to help Californians. And if it seems amongst members that that would be helpful, I'm more than willing to do so.
Did you have another point?
Yeah, that would be very helpful. And I apologize we didn't have a chance to to discuss this before the hearing.
Yes.
But appreciate your consideration of those points. I will definitely be supporting the bill today because I do think this provides more tools for local governments to hold people that are not in code compliance accountable. And these conditions do create a imminent danger to adjacent property owners and the broader community. But there are, edge cases where, somebody's a senior, somebody's low income, somebody have a disability. And I just note that you in various sections of the bill does talk about establishing a process for hardship waiver. Maybe we can build on that. I really appreciate consideration of that. But I do appreciate you bringing this forward. This definitely addresses an issue in my community that I represent, Oakland, and look forward to further discussions with you and helping support the passage of this bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Senator Cabalden.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you also for bringing the bill forward. I also served where the mayor, the very recently recovered mayor's wing of the table, and I mean the process is extensive, in part both in the law and in practice, because you can't be a city government that is imposing liens and taking people's property away for very long without being replaced by a new city government. So there are also some protections in our fundamental democratic process for the overreach, but this is a major issue in communities like mine, and throughout my district. And I do represent Sonoma also, often on weed abatement, which is really another word for fire, for protecting against fire hazards, where it's very clear what the threat is, and the threat is not contained to that property. And the failure to abate it, over weeks or months or years, is significant and imminent that threat to public health. And so we will abate, and then we will be ready to charge the property owners. But first, they get notice
Exactly.
that you need to abate. Okay, you haven't abated. Oh, so here's your second notice. You need to abate. You haven't abated. Here's your third one. Here's your fourth one that we are going to abate and then charge you. I still haven't. Okay, now we've done it. Now we're going to either impose a lien or a special assessment in order to accomplish that. And so here's the notice of that. You haven't responded to that. So here now we're going to do that, but you have the right to appeal, because the law requires that we have an appeals board. We used to have a hearing officer. The courts ruled a couple of years ago that these folks were entitled to a hearing before a board of their peers. That board hears it. And that's just for the actual code enforcement determination. That's not the lien or the assessment itself at this point. That is just the determinant. That's simply to reach the point where you have been you've received a code enforcement violation. It is not a code enforcement officer just walking around willy-nilly with violation notices everywhere. Then you have to consider the special assessment, or in this case the lien, which requires action of the city itself and its governing board, and therefore that goes on the agenda with a long list of property parcel numbers. And anyone that can come, depending on the nature of the charge, can come to the hearing, and they sometimes do, to say, hey, I'm in exactly this situation. I've in 20 years, I think one time somebody came and did not get their name taken off the list, because nothing in this bill requires that every single person without with prejudice be subjected to a lien. It simply gives that authority, and it gives that authority because in the list that I saw every single time was the same properties. And it wasn't the same grandma. It was the same companies. It was the same out-of-state landlords who would determine that our annual regular process was just, as you said, the cost of doing business. And why bother paying us for the check when they could just have it on their property tax bill? Maybe they're claiming a deduction. I don't know. So the lien is really an important way to focus the expense, not the average expense across the entire city through the assessment process, but the actual cost on that property owner, and make it not an appropriate cost of doing business for the large absent property owners who need to be paying attention to their property. So I think that due process is really critical, but the law also already accommodates and provides for that. Your bill is very, very carefully tailored in order to accomplish that. And so I'm definitely supportive. I think I'm glad to hear that you're going to continue to work on the issues that Senator Arreguín has identified, because we both have the scars from it, and it's important that we get it right. But you're definitely on a key issue here that is really critical for public safety and for holding especially large and out of city property owners accountable for the imminent threats to public safety that they're causing.
I
Permission to
just wanted,
respond.
was that a question?
Permission to respond.
Okay.
I just wanted to thank the senator for very clearly describing the process that was requested by some of the members, and we'll certainly incorporate that as we put it in the amendment. But the senator spoke spot on to the normal process for cities.
Yeah, I appreciate that we were reminded that there's already required a process for granting hardship waivers.
Yes.
And second, that this is about collecting costs is already in place as well. But I'd like to give ACLU, if you want a minute or so, to respond to any one of these issues.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think what I would just emphasize is that this bill is not a question as to whether a lien can be imposed. It is the process by which a lien would be imposed. And it is our view that in order for a lien to be placed on somebody's property, somebody's home, that there should be a judge involved, that it should require civil litigation, and understanding that that takes longer and can be more costly. There are very important reasons for that. This is sort of a fundamental principle of our legal system, of our Constitution. It is the bedrock of due process. And the problem with an administrative process for imposing liens is that property owners don't typically have the legal sophistication to represent themselves in what is sort of a quick process. We've seen this also in the context of civil asset forfeiture, where people's property has been forfeited through administrative processes, and they are ripe for abuse and also put property owners at a really significant disadvantage. And so it is our position that, sort of setting aside the question of whether a lien can be imposed, it's just about the process by which a lien should be imposed. And we believe that that should remain as is under current law, where you would have to go, where code enforcement would have to go to court and have the involvement of a judge who would oversee the process, as opposed to relegating it to an administrative process. So just wanted to point out that we're not arguing, and want to make clear that this isn't a question as to whether or not liens are an appropriate issue, but just the process by which they should be imposed.
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Senator Ciardo.
I know, I didn't. So to sum it up, your bill is just trying to give teeth to the community's ability to get land, people who own lands, to keep their land cleared of debris and nuisance stuff. And I think the best way for people not to get a lien is to take care of their property. And when somebody becomes a property owner, whether it's a home or vacant land, it's their responsibility to follow the laws that are really meant to protect other people as well. Because if the neighbor's property is dilapidated, that means my property is worth a lot less. A lien does not mean you're losing your property. A lien means when you sell your property, you have to pay off the lien. So there's nothing in here that I think is that damaging to a homeowner or landowner. When what they're doing, they should have taken care of it themselves, and they wouldn't be doing any of this process, and nobody has to worry about this. This is a frustrating issue for a lot of communities, especially more rural communities. When you have land between homes and absentee ownership. A lot of these big lands are bought by entities that are hoping that someday growth will catch up, and their lot that they bought for $100,000 is going to be worth $2 million. Well, that investment requires attention by the person that owns it. I like your bill, and I think I'm going to be supporting your bill today. I don't think it's too broad. I don't think it. I think you have narrowed it to the issue at hand, which is how the heck do we make people keep their lands clean so that they don't affect other people? And so I appreciate that. And I appreciate your willingness to try to, to work with everybody's concerns. But I think your bill is a great bill. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Senator, would you like to close?
I'd like to ask for an aye vote.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And there is,
Move the bill.
I think. Okay, wait, Senator. The motion has been moved by Senator Araguin. Assistant, would you please call the roll?
The motion is due pass as amended to the Committee on Judiciary. Senators Durazo,
Aye.
Durazo, aye. Choi, Choi, aye. Araguin, Araguin, aye. Cabaldon, Cabaldon, aye. Laird,
Aye.
Laird, aye. Sayarto, Sayarto, aye. Wiener, Wiener, aye.
The bill, we closed the roll and the vote was 7-0. I want to thank the witnesses for being here, please. Thank you very much. Okay, Senator Richardson, SB-515.
The way it currently stands, forced labor, slavery takes precedence over rehabilitation and public safety.
Oh, by the way, while the Biden administration gives reparations to everyone but free people, look at the billions he has run over to Ukraine.
We don't have black grocery stores because if you think about it now, just to get in that supply chain, it's almost unheard of.
They don't want the truth to get out. Okay? I don't want to know what my family did or what all these people did and all this stuff like that. Okay? You read that 500-page report.
There's this thing called white superiority and black inferiority. That mindset allows all of the behaviors that we've seen across generations, allows for the construction of these policies and practices and systems and structures that continue to oppress us. This is not a handout. This is a debt that is owed.
You know, Allensworth was like the internet of his time in 1904, 1905.
The total black population in California is about 2.6 million, and then of that, the descendants compose about 2.2 million of that. So California, with a multi-billion-dollar surplus, can absolutely afford to satisfy the international terms for reparations, beginning with compensation.
Any financial obstacle that exists that impedes the success of increasing financial prosperity needs to be dealt with and eliminated.
No matter where we've been, no matter what part of this fight we've been in, we've been harmed, and we've had harm done to us specifically.
When I got to Los Angeles, this was some of the worst segregation I'd ever seen. And remember, I'm telling you, I'm from Mississippi.
Because as you can see, I'm giving you broken history right now, you know? But I had to give it to you guys today. I said, no, I got to show them this because it's so precious and nobody really knows about it.
Black people don't have that kind of luxury. Our historically black communities have been redistricted multiple times.
Now listen, if you can't handle the TR roof, don't tune in.